Hey everybody, welcome. It feels like ages since I've done this, but it's only been 2 weeks, strangely enough. What I'd like to suggest is that we look at these blind first and get a feel for what we like the most and see how it shows in the ratings. What I wanted to do first is sketch out the difference in vintage between Victoria and Tasmania. Tasmania was dry, the whole harvest. Yields were exceptionally low, wasn't a lot of rain, but what came off the vines is showing a super intensity. So it's that old adage of, what's not good for the winemaker is great for the wine consumer. So we should probably see arced up phenolics in the Taswegian Pinots relative to the Victorian. Digging around in the vintage reports for Victoria, I think the best way is to quote Mike Dillon exactly. The ride was long and radical. When we thought this vintage, this season has had it all, it gave some more. And that overview applies to the by Farr wines as well in the middle of Geelong, where you had good winter rain, but then frost in September, then they started growing strongly, then there was cold. So it was this, I think in the fullness of time, people will look back on Victoria or Geelong 2020 with the view that it really took the most out of the winemaker in terms of all these decisions that had to be made in confluence with the varying vintage conditions and made it for, they were sweating bullets in Geelong. But the results, especially at this top end, where you're looking at people who really are the best at what they do, we're seeing the best examples or expositions of that. I think that firstly, let's have a sniff and a sip through the 6 wines and see, it might be interesting to see and just file in your head which ones you consider may be the Taswegian and which you might think are Victorian, just by difference in style. I suspect a bit more urgency out of the Victorian wines. Just while we're doing this, you might find it interesting to note that this La Maison is a brand new release from the Fogarty Group. Out of their Tasmanian vineyards, all comes from Coal Valley, along with the same with the Giant Steps, which is also all Coal River. The Dalwhinnie comes from 3 different places, one of them being Coal River and 2 other sites outside of Coal River. It's Coal River, forgot my geography right, southeastern part of Tasmania. Certainly on the phenolics, a couple of them are jumping out really strongly or quite sort of more urgently than others. Some are quite subdued. Now, if you thinking of the by Farr Pinots, the Cote is probably the pristine release from by Farr. Nick and Gary write about the Cote sites being the preeminent structure, or the bone, the skeleton of what the next 30 or 40 or 50 years of by Farr wines are all about. Those 3 vineyards that comprise the Cote. North, I wrote it down for you guys, north, northeast, and east, whereas the Farr Rising is only northerly. The Farr Rising is not planted the same way as Cote. Cote is this small French Burgundian style plantings, where the theory behind that is that the vines need to struggle for nutrients and compete for nutrients amongst each other, whereas the Farr Rising is far broader spacing. So you're going to find a far more voluptuous or giving or abundant flavor profile out of the Farr Rising. Anything emerging from the phenolics before you even start tasting? Is there anything that you think is showing better than others? Certainly two that are showing more aggressively, more abundantly. Also, when you guys are taking a look at it, you'll note some various gradations in color. And in fact, the color may well be the giveaway as to the location, Tasmania versus Victoria today. There's certainly, if I'm looking at mine correctly, yeah, I'm looking at mine correctly, the three Tasmanian Pinots have a far deeper, richer color to them than the Victorian Pinots. Could be for a number of reasons, but that's certainly outstanding out today. Some feedback on this La Maison, in addition to what I wrote in the notes originally. These vines were planted in 1986, which was a fair while before the Fogarty Group took over the operation. But being 1986, these are some of the oldest vines, if not the oldest, in Tasmania, which is a really salient point to bear. There's so much planting going on in Tasmania, but I'd say about 75% of what's going on in Tas right now, less than 10 years old vine age. For me, wine number 3 is showing in the palate, it's a sleeker, silkier top in the middle of my mouth. There's just something a bit more, it sort of has a shimmer to it, which is on point for who makes it. Very silky. The wine before it, by contrast, for me, is giving more in terms of flavor and construct right now. But it doesn't have quite that beautiful finish that number 3 has. Yeah, number 4, flavor construct, everything's amped up. There's just so much going on in that glass. So much to talk about. And it's a wine that's definitely got a massive trajectory ahead of it. I would suggest that of the first 4, that's the one that I sort of see barreling down the down the hill longer than any of the others. For me, number 5 is a little shy in the glass. It's just flown in as well, which might have contributed to that. Yeah, I'm not getting much out of my glass. I don't know how you guys feel on yours. Yeah, it's a little short, it's a little bit up front. It might just be shut down. I don't want to bag it terribly. I really like number 6. For me, number 6, it tends to combine a laciness and a darkness of fruit profile. It seems to bring both those things into the glass, which is quite clever. It's quite nuanced and on point. I like it. All right, votes. You can throw it in the chat room. Let me just do that if you don't want to shout out. Oh, sorry, I haven't been reading the chat room. Kevin, yeah, I just wanted us to wander through this first and get an idea of which wines we liked, and then I'll open up the lineup. So, anybody voting for number 1 as their favorite? Nobody in the chat? Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah. You're right about that, Byron. It's definitely got that kind of minty coolness about it. Okay, Colin, if you wanna espouse for us, tell us which ones you think are the Taswegians. Because I'd say that the Victorians are showing very Victorian in their style today. Yeah, Byron, you're right. 1, 5, and 6 are the Tasses. They're definitely and I got to that by process of elimination more than anything else, because the Victorians for me are showing really how I was kind of hoping and remember that how they've shown in the past. So if you want to take a stab at 1, 5, and 6, which one would you see as being dominant stylistically? Byron, are you saying that Victoria's savoury?
Yeah, mate. Sorry, and look, I'm not at my best at the moment, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I've got a bit of flu, so.
Oh, okay.
We make do.
But when you're saying savoury versus fruit, is that how you're differentiating the regions?
Yeah, that was what kind of identified the stylistic difference between Tassie and Victoria for me, particularly given the makers that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So Farr and Dylan, you know, these guys, that's the way they make wine.
Okay.
What's the third Victorian wine? Sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
The 2 Farrs. There's a Farr Rising.
Oh, there's 2 Farrs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Bindi Dixon.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say if you guys then narrow it down to those 3 Victorians, the Bindi Dixon seems to be stylistically quite easily identifiable aside from the Farrs. Nick made both those Farrs. And then location-wise as well, I'm pretty sure that I tried to find the notes. I'm not sort of pulling the details out of my ass, but I'm relatively certain that the Farrs, the elevation of the Farr vineyards is higher than the Bindi vineyards. I think that that's something to bear in mind. Certainly, I think it has context. I've got an idea that the Dixon's pretty close to valley floor. Mark's going to shoot me down if I'm wrong, but it's showing for me here today more. It's quite exuberant and richer and fuller and more forward. Whereas for me, the Farrs have more nuance to them, just as a basic rule for me between the 3. So the Dixon is number 2. The Farr Rising is number 3. And number 4 is the Cote. It's also interesting, Dixon to Farr Rising to Cote, big price jumps, right? You're going from 75 to 90 to 120, and I think in the secondary market, that's probably going to be pretty close to 135, 140 soon. So these wines, the Farrs are expensive.
Robert.
Yeah.
Man, hey, which part of Victoria again are the Farr wines?
Farrs at Geelong.
Both are in Geelong.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other Victorian one that's further up, right?
Yeah. It's slightly further north.
Bindi.
Bindi, but lower elevation. I was trying to get that data for you before the tasting today, but I couldn't find it in time. Actually wanted the elevation, but I'll look it up and I'll send it to you guys when I can find it. But both the Farrs are on slopes and black volcanic soil, certainly for the Farr Rising. I think there's a differential in the soils for the Cote from the Farr relative to the Farr Rising, but I couldn't find that from Nick in time.
Robert, do you mind putting up the wines again, because I can't seem to find the list?
Let's just have let's just deal with the Tassie. Which ones of 1, 5, and 6 do you prefer? bearing in mind that one of those three wines is the wine companion Pinot of the year.
62.
And Robert, what's
Yep.
the difference between the Cote Vineyard? What is that, like a single block?
The Cote comes from three different slopes. I have an idea that there's clay as well as limestone in the Cote, but not for the Farr rising. In the instance of the Farr rising, it's a north-facing slope only, and it's crushed black volcanic soil.
Okay.
So very different interpretations of grape. If you then drill down into the clones, there's about 7 clones in the Cote, but I couldn't get specifics on how different the clones are in the Farr rising relative to the Cote, but massively complex wine in the Cote. Right, so Pippa reckons wine number 1 is the La Maison. Any more contributions of the 3? Number 5, Colin, you're voting 5 as the La Maison. Okay, let me just put this up. Hang on, share screen.
Not very many people on this thing.
Here we go.
Can't read that. What's got mine?
So that's the lineup.
On there. Sorry, which was
Bindi, Big Dixon is 2.
Yeah.
Farr rising. For Cote down. Oh shit, sorry.
That the price on that Farr rising has gone up steadily over the last few years, but there's just so much ridiculous demand. I've got people who just give me options, whatever 2024 I can find, but there's really none. We're now waiting for 2021. So I guess they can charge what the market's prepared to pay. Really extraordinary performance from Maison in so early in the piece, coming up with a wine that is of this quality. What I'd love to know, and I'm going to do some ferreting around, is who was making wine before Fogarty took over this vineyard, because it's I like the delicacy of it. There's to use a word that Byron uses quite a bit for Cote Noir, there's a laciness about this wine that I think is very attractive for me. I usually tend to run away from people who give references to Burgundy, but that's certainly something that seems to come back at me again and again when I'm tasting number 1. What's also quite interesting for me is the characteristics of Coal River as a site. It probably seems to be becoming the preeminent site for Pinot production in Tas. I think that seems to be very clearly the case, and more super quality is coming out of there. At this price point, I can see why he's sit online today. No, I don't see him there. But there's somebody who bought a set today and wants to buy whatever La Maison I can get. I've got left. I think I've got 2 bottles after this tasting left. The proof of the pudding is going to be 2021, where there's a little bit more rain in Tasmania, so maybe that incredible intensity of fruit might lessen a little bit in the years to come. For me, the tannic construct of Bindi, number 2, seems very clearly there. Although it's 100% destemmed, I'm picking up quite a lot of tannin in number 2 already. I've always been a Farr rising fan. I kind of like that sweet spot of price and quality. I really, really like the Farr rising today. It's got a sort of like a velvetiness about it. It's got there's a little bit of glycerine, a bit of oil, a bit of fattiness to it. I think it's incredibly well crafted. I can't remember the ratings anymore, but that's not a 96. I'd be very surprised from most writers. And then the Cote, number 4, high density planting, high everything. It's planted on all these various slopes. It's a complex, dense wine. I know that when I've gone back and tasted 5 and 6 years earlier. Well, that's a good question, Pippa. And Colin or Byron might be able to answer. What would $125 buy you out of Burgundy?
Yeah.
2 years older.
Yeah, lots of stuff.
Okay, that's really what I'm edging towards, Byron. I came back from Oz about a month ago, where these Pinot specialist sections are all in the retail stores now, and they're nudging on $150 to $200 a bottle. And I'm just thinking, geez, obviously the Australian consumers are into that, but oh my gosh, it's big numbers.
Yeah, I think at those price points, it's hard to justify. I mean, back in the day when you were talking 50, 60 for the best on offer,
yeah,
I think, you gravitated towards the New World. But, at the price points today, I can buy, I'm drinking a Gevrey just as a reference point alongside of all of these. It's 2 years older, similar vintage though in many respects. So I think it's a good thing to kind of stack up against what we're looking at.
okay.
I don't want to share what I think of it compared to the others, because that may just be my opinion, but it's good.
Yeah,
And it's around the same price, right? It's around the same price. It's probably a $90 retail bottle or $100 retail bottle.
So Manwin, your Gros Chambord, that's going to be a bit more than $125, isn't it?
Yeah, slightly more.
Yeah. In fact, I think it's quite a lot more.
150.
Oh, okay. It's not that much more. Oh no, sorry. I had that closer to 200. Oh, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah, but my friend Winston made a comment that it's also got a bit of age on it, so it is drinking.
Okay. From us, Toby, Pippa, I would say the best buying at the moment at that price bracket is, we still have remnants of 2015 Antonin Guillons, which we bought 6 years ago, which are definitely underpriced, and they are sitting at about 125. That would be my go-to off our site currently. By some sort of fate, we managed to pick up a bunch of 15s from a negotiant who just crazy to think that you can still get 2015 Burgundy. But yeah, that would be our star one. And in fact, it's the stuff that I drink whenever I need to go somewhere. It's the wine that I pick at the moment. That Cote, I feel, is suffering in this lineup today, mainly because it's only just started. It's not even woken up yet. I think that the Farr Rising is, evolving quite far along the curve already in terms of drinkability, whereas the Cote is just this big brooding giant of a wine that just is not showing much to us today. I'm wondering, I was looking in Halliday's notes, I think, and he was suggesting that 2020 Chardonnay from Geelong may in fact be the more interesting one to collect. And certainly the Cote Chardonnay 20 I had the other day, and it's evolving, it's impressing already. Yeah, that Dalwhinnie just is in everyone else's glasses. Has it opened a little bit? I'm getting no loving at all from it. The Fatal Shore from Giant Steps is way more open. Something to watch with Giant Steps. It looks like they're changing the label every year. So that label, if anyone buys Giant Steps today, that might not be the label you see. It looks like it's a different label. On that Maison, Everyone who's tasted it and written about it, Ray, Jordan, the wine front people, everyone references this kind of seamless detailing in the wine, and it's easy to pick that up when you taste it today. And in fact, I would suggest that, except for the by far, it's the one that's showing the most in just beautiful integration at such an early stage. It's actually quite difficult to project how that wine's going to travel because it's drinking so well now. Yeah, I agree, Derek. I think that, the Primavera from Giant Steps here. I've got bad news for you guys on the Giant Steps story. The new owners, the Americans, are giving us some heat about pricing. So I suspect that prices will go up. They're going to charge us more next vintage. I kind of thought that would happen. It always happens under new management, right? I think we're going to have to be ready for the Giant Steps single series stuff being north of $80 in the next vintage. Rags, we've got quite a bit of it because we had a feeling in the waters. Let me see if I can't actually access it now. All my screens are full because I've got the share screen going, but there's a fair bit on site at the moment. The Giant Steps is a very clever, the single vineyard Giant Steps is a very clever buy now because we're never going to be able to repeat those prices. That Giant Steps Applejack, I think it certainly has always been the crowd favorite from Giant Steps. And that's certainly the one we've sold the most. And then I like Primavera because, Derek, do I have it right that that's the highest altitude vineyard? I think that's right. I think Primavera is the highest altitude of all their vineyards, all their Pinot vineyards. Damn, that Cote's good. It just sticks to the roof of my mouth. It's just so not ready. Yeah, man, I can't remember. It's crazy because we've done so many tastings with him. The other thing to note is that as of 2023 vintage, it's going to be a new winemaker at the helm. I think either 21 or 22 is the end. Pick of the Giant Steps, Applejack. Applejack Pinot is just amazing. Yeah, the Cote's amazing, Byron. It's just, I feel like we're murdering it so young, right? But at least you got that 18 to fall back on at home.
It's the one that's stacking up against the Berg the best.
Yes, I agree.
Selection.
Yeah. And it's not just a question of the way it's planted or anything like that. It's always had that sort of tight bone-esque style about it. It's always been the one that's impressed the Francophiles the most.
Yeah, and built for the long haul.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Pippa Applejack, I can't remember. I think it's about 75 bones. I can't see online now, but I think it's about that. That's the one just buy. It's just extraordinarily good.
It is. That wasn't 75 before.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Wasn't it?
That was almost on the Pippa shelf. It was definitely. It was midweek. It was not weekend.
Well, man, I'm glad you got a sipper shelf and not a trailing spouse shelf. My mates are telling me that, you know, these days in the world of hashtag #MeToo, you can't have a trailing spouse shelf anymore.
There are no rules here, no rules.
You got to give it another name.
Trailing Brunei.
Oh dear.
Yeah, man. I like the Giant Steps point of view, but I think I'm giving it more points than I should because I don't like the Dalwhinnie. I'm not liking the Dalwhinnie. I'm finding the Dalwhinnie a little dumb, a little flat today. I would say.
Do you know Giant?
Maybe your outdoor drinking area is looking more and more fantastic every time I see it. The glasses are improving.
we were a bit more organised. Although I tell you what, you were straight out the blocks at 2 o'clock, 1:58 by my.
Yes, yeah. I've got it all sorted out here digitally, so I get a warning thing at 1:30 and what have you. So it's all kind of fairly structured these days. Because last year, you know what happened last year? I got home from work, it was a Thursday, and I was so stuffed. I thought, okay, I'll just shut my eyes for 10 minutes before the 7. I woke up at 2 minutes to 7. I've never felt such anxiety in my entire life. So I've decided then to pretend everything's all fine or whatever. So I'm quite strict on myself now in terms of timing and stuff.
Amazing. Are you sorry? This probably completely passed me by. You're still not in Singapore?
No, I am. I got back last night.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Arthur weed himself. So he
Yeah. Colin, yes, you're right. I think that's the thing.
We are on move now, but we weren't before.
The Dalwhinnie loses it for me on the length more than anything. It's just, for me, it's lost after the first third of the palate. It seems to disappear. It's just it's not giving me any loving at all. I'm getting quite a lot of heat. It's just yeah. The Giant Steps is a little flat, but it's by no means the least impressive of everything that's on the table. That's kind of what I would say about it. The question is, do you guys see value at 125 for the Maison, which is the all-important question? I think we all see value for the Cote at that price, but do you see that with the Maison?
I was about to ask a bigger question in the context of this. Being back for the first time in 3 years to the UK, the price of Aussie wines in the UK was just ridiculous. As in, it was almost pounds for sing.
Really, mate?
So expensive there for Aussie wines, what you were getting versus other things on the shelves, and Spanish, Italian, and even the French. And so it was, I don't know, this seems to be, every time there's a change in the exchange rate, here we see that difference in Singapore. Yeah. It's for some reason in the UK, Aussie wines just seem to be super premium. And every time you saw the prices on a wine list, you were literally, you were choking on your water. Oh,
okay. So that's in restaurants. What about supermarkets?
No, Majestic. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was one, LVMH does a friends and family deal for the, I think 2016 or 2017 Cape Mentel Cabernet, and you can get it through them for about 60 sing, and it retails, I think, normally about 109. That was at Majestic, which I would see as a sort of benchmark in terms of £69.
Yeah, see.
Which is just mind-blowing, and that was when the pound actually was worth something. So I know we're
the great British peso. Yeah, I know it's great, mate. What about freight? Do you think that's having a big bearing on retail in the UK?
Sorry, what did you say?
Freight, because
but possibly. But I mean, maybe that's an element of it. Yeah, we know that those shipping prices, those containers going from this part of the world into the UK has gone up significantly. But but it's a volume game as well. I mean, if you're how many cases of wine can you get in a container?
40,000 bottles.
Yeah. So it can't be that material.
Yeah.
Against the old world, but new world was looking super expensive on the basis of my last trip. That was my only observation.
A couple of people were saying a few days ago that they see the cost of freight coming down, the cost of fuel coming down. I'm not sure why, but they all seem to believe that a lot of the price rises are built in and are softening. So I was quite happy to hear that point of view. Whether that proves to be correct or not, who knows?
Yeah.
So I think what's been interesting about the tasting today is that whatever the judges might think, we still seem to lean towards the Cote as the premium wine of the lineup. And certainly if you're putting $120+ down, that's probably the wine to pursue of this particular lineup. If anyone's interested, I'm doing a 7-year vertical of Bindi Perret Shiraz at Meatsmith, Little India in 2 weeks' time. I'm sending a note. It's on the events page, but it so happens that I've managed to accumulate 2014 to 2020 Bindi Perret Shiraz. So we're taking their upstairs room at Meatsmith. My feeling about Meatsmith Little India is it's a bit hot to sit downstairs and drink wine, but now they've converted the cocktail bar upstairs into a private dining area. I'm all over it. So I'm a big fan. Byron, what would you say about cellaring of the Cote? 10 years before you started looking at it seriously?
Is it still under cork?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yep, then 10. But you could get into it a little bit earlier than that, I would have thought. Maybe 5.
Well, I've got memories of earlier vintages of this, drinking it at about the same time relative to release. This one's easier for me. I'm finding easier. Just thinking about 19 and 16 and what have you. Maybe, you know.
It's still infanticide to a degree because you're missing out on all the best that this is going to show with a little bit more.
Because those tannins, my God, those tannins on the top front of your palate are so good, but they're not actually doing the job they should do at this point.
That's an interesting point, right? So if you look at this versus your La Maison, I think La Maison, it's a very polished wine. There's a lot of winemaker artifact in that for me, which is why it's showing so brilliantly at this early point. But I don't have a clear view of how this evolves over time. I don't see it being as complex and as nuanced and as layered as the Cote will ultimately be. Yeah. And you're already seeing signs of that with the Cote at this early drinking window. Yeah. I don't find that with that La Maison. I think that's a delicious wine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing that wine. Yeah. But I don't see that evolving with the same kind of potential.
But this is what always happens in wine tasting, wine judging. Here's a wine that's obviously going to stand out for the here and now. But for 5 years' time, Cote's the logical way to go. And
no, it's like the cadet's spit-shined boot.
Yes.
Right? It's so shiny. It's so pristine. Yeah. But you have to look through that. Yeah. It's my kind of guidance.
Certainly from a consumer point of view, I can see why Maison sold out in 5 hours. It's just so extraordinarily. And the word you use, polished, is exactly the right word. It's finished in every way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, look, I'm just an amateur, mate, so don't.
Oh, no, me too. I'm just a humble salesman. I'm just here to sell wine. So I'm always so suspicious of big wine competitions because I often think that the wines that win are not always the best wines. They're the wines that are showing the best on the day. And I wonder about that in context today.
Yeah. If you think back to what you said, though, at the vine age, they've got the raw ingredients to make clearly a brilliant wine.
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't an artificially brilliant wine. It is a very, very good quality wine.
Yeah.
But I think it's seen some edges dulled and some, good quality new oak. A whole bunch of factors of
man, I think it's only 25% new French.
okay, that's still a decent amount, right?
Yeah. But the company obviously wanted to put whatever they put into this wine, they wanted to give it the best it could. I think it's the detailing that I like about it. This very clever kind of. You always used to talk to me about this power without grace, and maybe the
weight
today is showing that in quite a big way.
Power without weight.
Weight, sorry, not grace.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's showing that today. It's very nuanced and eloquent. But anyway, a really, really interesting experience. So everybody, thank you for joining us today. Toby, I'm loving your wine room. It's fantastic. I think we need to have a party at yours.
But always welcome, Rob. You and Lou, you can host it from here one day. I'm not sure you'll get much.
Oh, I'd love it.
So
No, we do that.
We would love to have you. I actually physically haven't seen you, Rob, I think for 10 years.
It's been ridiculous. I think we last time we drank together was the Singapore Cricket Club. It was such a long time ago. It was yonks ago. We must change that. We must do something about that.
Third of you looks like.
It was her 30th birthday. I'm not going to say how old she is now.
But it was at least 3 children ago.
We have 4, so there's something that needs to be caught
Yes,
up.
exactly. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for today. It was a lot of fun.
You've got one more question in the chat,
Oh,
Robert.
right. Sorry,
Rags wants you to
talk about
opine
terroir.
on
Okay,
terroir.
so
I'm as keen as mustard as well to hear you talk about it.
So please jump in if I say anything wrong, Byron.
No chance.
So we're fortunate today in looking at 3 Taswegian wines that come predominantly from the southeast part of Tasmania. Cold, extreme. It has the benefits of some heat in the summer, but really, really cold in the winter. But it seems to me that Pinot seems to love these extremes. And Cold River in particular, this small area of very fertile, dark volcanic soil is interpreting a style of Pinot Noir that is impressive and can stand with much of Burgundy. If you're looking at Victoria, just a few meters can change everything in terms of terroir. You also have in Victoria the impact of altitude, where you take, for example, Giant Steps in Victoria, they're producing Pinot at 500 meters and they're producing Pinot at 175 meters. And that makes such a massive difference. In fact, I would argue that in Victoria, altitude has a stronger bearing on the final product of Pinot that comes out of that region in Australia than almost any other factor, taking away the winemaker and these techniques. So that would be probably the closest I could come to encapsulating that. I can't get into soil in Victorian soil because it's so very different. But my favorite location is probably Gippsland for Victorian. It seems to be something I really like, that sort of arid, cool climate, really irascible weather that seems to bring out the really best of the Pinots. Okay, Byron, how did I do? Give me a rating out of 10.
Look, that was an impossible question, right? That's why I didn't want to make any comment whatsoever. I think the situation in Tassie is really interesting, right? So as global warming is becoming a real challenge for, anywhere that's been consistent in the past, I think what you're seeing down there is this long, slow ripening over a period of time that's delivering up a high quality, great product if you're farming correctly, if you're doing it right in the vineyard. And it's the future, right? Every good quality Pinot, Chardonnay, Riesling that Australia produces going forward, I firmly believe it's going to come out of Tassie. And those that own the oldest vineyards are going to be the ones that have got the best product to start with.
By virtue of
Best
vine age.
grapes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's young, right? A lot
Yeah.
of it's recently planted.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's so interesting to note that Dalwhinnie, which comes from the Pyrenees in Victoria predominantly, and I think the Eagle Shiraz from Dalwhinnie boasts the highest altitude vineyard in all of Victoria. So there's a producer that's recognizing this dash to Tasmania along with everybody else, recognizing how important it is to bioinsure against global warming or climate change, as my friends in Coonawarra like to call it. But
So their disappointing showing here, I put down to the fact that they just don't know how to deal with Pinot.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a grape that demands, proper expertise. It's marginal. You have to really pay attention and know your stuff. Gary Farr and Nick Farr, they've been doing this for 100 years.
A long time
between them, right? That's what you need.
Mate,
Really
have you come across much information on the new Giant Steps winemaker?
No, I haven't even looked into it.
Oh, okay.
I'm just disappointed that I'm not going to be able to acquire the wines at the price that I used to.
Yeah, I think brace yourself for 20 to 25% increase.
It's going to be nothing like what we used to pay for that.
Yeah, mate. But the point is,
everyone on the call, fill your boots with whatever's left. Honestly, it's great wine. As Derek mentioned, great QPR. Across the range, right? Across the range.
Yeah.
Chardonnays as well. Chardonnays,
for sure.
Incredible value.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, you're not going to see those prices ever again, which is sad.
It's interesting because I think the particular paradigm in Australian retail is that Australians are prepared to pay these bigger numbers. I was in Brisbane, which is the Las Vegas of Australia at the moment in terms of real estate and what seems to be abject wealth. And the price of wine at retail was horrifying, really horrifying. So maybe it's a parochial thing, Byron. Maybe the vast majority is being consumed at home. I don't know. Well, Rags, I hope that answered your question. But Byron encapsulated it correctly.
Rob, yes, it did. It did. Thank you very much.
Oh, welcome.
A little bit of a follow-on. Was it? So I would guess that Tassie whites and sparkling are terrific too.
Oh yeah, fantastic. There's
oh my God.
Yeah, the Arras, is it Craiglinger I had recently?
Fantastic.
That Craiglinger is just dynamite. And in fact, people are so obsessed about comparing sparkling to champagne. I say forget about going through that. Look at Tasmanian sparkling in its own context, and it will take your breath away. It's just extraordinarily good. There's
I think I've just been drinking a lot of English sparkling, and I don't use the word champagne anymore. I just talk sparkling.
Correct.
Also excellent.
Yeah.
Also excellent.
Yeah.
If you keep this chat open, Rob, I want to share something with the group. If I can just find what I want. Where is it? Who's it come from? It's come from Adam. Of course, it's come from Adam.
Adam in Hong Kong, our man in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. How do I push this across into this?
I'll stop the recording too, so I can